Welcome back to the Beyond the Buckets. We have a very special guest for this special program on being Black in America, a Black man in America. Welcome my good friend, somebody that I really look up to in a lot of ways, Coach Phillip Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, brother. Appreciate it.
Well, I think this is a great time for us to kind of go on record with a lot of our thoughts, especially because of the light that, in light of all the things that are transpiring right now with our country and our nation. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you about our experience being a Black man in America, because you may have a idea of what you think it is to be Black, but a lot of times they really don't. And I'm excited for this talk. And why we need this talk is not just because of what has happened to George Floyd, but this conversation is happening because of seeing, how crazy that whole situation was. And in 2020, you feel like, how is this still happening?
Like this stuff is still going on.
And so, I think it's time for us to stop the silence.
Yes, for sure. Yes. Go ahead.
No, you got it.
No, I was just going to say, I just think it's so important. I think George Floyd that's just the tip of the surface. I think it starts way back from when we weren't even born. And for it to just be continued now that's definitely an issue. And that's where I think we think about our loved ones, and we think about, our kids and our family members and things that they might have experienced, and protecting our children. Like, what if this happened to my kid? Or, what happened? And just as a Black man, we feel it, because even that it's not us personally, it's us personally in a way, because we still feel it. Like, that could be us. We could go to the store. That could be any of us. And for us to go through that and just have that fear in our heart, that's an issue.
It's a big issue. And you mentioned it could happen to us. It could happen to one of our friends. It could happen to one of our family members. It could happen to anybody that just because of their skin color. The young brother, I believe his name was Ahmad, he went for a run, just a couple weeks ago, and was gunned down by, two, white citizens. And it's just unbelievable to think that we live in a time right now where we can't even feel comfortable going for a run. So I do want to talk about some of the experiences that I have and you have growing up as an African American, and I'll probably kick it off. I've got three different ones, but we can kind of go back and forth. The first experience, and we haven't talked about this at all. All the things that we're talking about now is just basically kind of collecting our thoughts and gathering our thoughts, because it's such a hard thing. Even before we got on, I'm just thinking, how am I going to articulate this in a way that everybody can understand? It's really sad that we have to talk about it, but now, moving forward as a leader, as a coach, as a teacher, as a father, it's my obligation to make sure that I at least say something in my communities. And last night I told this story for the first time outside of telling my wife. I told this to our basketball team on the Zoom chat. And we originally thought that this was going to be a celebration for the seniors. The whole week changed, based on George Floyd untimely passing. But this story goes back to when I was 14 years old. I was hanging out with my buddy, and my buddy is half Black, half white. His mom is white, dad is Black. He would come visit every single summer to his mom's house. They lived in an upper middle class neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
They knew all the families in all the neighbors and whatnot. And, everybody would see me every summer because when he comes for his 8 weeks, I'm literally there probably every night of the week or every other night if he's spending the night at my house.
Right.
But on this one particular day, we go out, play basketball. He's 16, I'm 14. He can drive. The key was misplaced or not left out for he and I to return. So he's got to climb into one of the bedroom windows in the house. And so he climbs in, I'm waiting outside, he props open the door. We're thinking nothing of it.
Right.
We start playing video games. And I don't know if you remember this track and field game back in the day. I forgot what it was called, but it was on PlayStation. And you had to have like this spoon.
Yeah.
You had this spoon where you're like,
Yeah.
So there was a spoon that we each had. We're going like this, and all of a sudden the door kicks open. It's the police, guns drawn.
Whoa.
On 2 young Black kids in this all white neighborhood. And we were shocked. We were stunned. Our hands go up. We had no clue what was happening. And they put us in handcuffs, and we're on the floor, and we're telling them, like, look, there's pictures of us on the walls.
Yeah.
And first of all, we wouldn't be playing no video games.
Right. In somebody else's house.
If we were in somebody else's house. So that was a moment in time in which my mom always warned me about stuff like that.
Right.
Growing up in San Jose, we have a lot of cultures, but I had white friends, I had Black friends, I had Hispanic, I had Asian, I had Indian, you name it, we had it. But she always told me that I was different and that I would have to be careful how I conduct myself, and I can't do everything that maybe my white friends did or would do.
Right.
And I just never really understood that.
Yeah, because as a young man, you're like, you're like, okay, mom, like, yeah, I hear you. But then you're thinking like, okay, what does that really mean? And you don't really know what it means until you experience it firsthand. And then you're like, oh, wow, I understand. Like, I get it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was that situation. I was never really the same as far as that goes with the police. That was my first of many encounters with law enforcement, and it wasn't a great one. His mom tried to, complain, but she was more upset with the neighbors, because they know that she has a Black son.
Right.
They know. You've seen him, for the past, however many summers they've lived there. And so it was just disheartening that somebody would do that, knowing the situation. I can understand from the officer's perspective, like they just got a call that somebody was, burglarizing the house, but it was really one of the neighbors that really called out to it. And quite frankly, they shouldn't have, because they know we're the only Black, 2 kids in the neighborhood. Right. And that was just unfortunate that happened. Man. But that's the first story that I got. And now it's your turn to share.
Yeah. There's so many, like you said. One that comes to mind, like when I was just thinking about it, is when I was about 15 years old in high school. Me and my boys, we were at the park. Lower Creek Park is area that I grew up in. We used to always go to the school, to the elementary school, to play basketball. Everybody knew us in the area, so we went to go play basketball. We're playing basketball. It's probably 10 to 12 of us hooping. Playing basketball, it's hot, no shirts on. We're just going at it. And we're done, and we're laughing. We're leaving the fence of the school. We're done, we're laughing. And there's like 4 cop cars that just pull up on the side of us and get out and run out. And they're like, everybody on the ground. Blah, blah, everybody on the ground. Don't move. And we're looking like, what's going on? Like, we're literally just laughing like, what's going on? So then they all make us sit on the curb. They put us all in handcuffs, and we're just sitting there. As cars are going by, it's our friends, people in the community that know us. We all play for the high school basketball team. We're the best team in the district. So everybody knows who we are. We're just playing. And we're like, officers, what are we being handcuffs for? What are you pulling us over for? And they're like, there's some young black men that just robbed a convenience store. And we're like, okay, so what does that mean for us? Oh, you guys fit the description. And I'm like, he said that there was 7 young black men that robbed a convenience mart. There was about 10 or 12 of us. So I don't understand how we fit the description. And so in my head, I didn't say it, but in my head, me and all my boys are looking at each other like when they said we fit the description. Mind you, none of those officers were black officers. They were all white officers being very aggressive with us, pulling us over. And we're like, we fit the description because we're black. So now that just brings a whole other humiliation to us as young black men, seeing our neighbors, seeing people that know us in the community drive by and pull over. Why are you in handcuffs? Calling our parents, why are you? And then they sit us there for like 30 minutes. We're just sitting out there. They're running backgrounds or doing everything they can. And they realize that none of us were robbed anything or anything like that. So then they let us go and we're just angry. Like, we're just angry and we're just talking about it. But the disappointment and, the sadness and, the anger that I seen on my friends' faces, like them having to even go through that, the humiliation of even being that was probably my first time in cuffs. Like just to be handcuffs and people to ride by watching you on the curb like you're some criminal. Like, how does that that made me feel some type of way at all, but just for people to think about that who haven't been in that situation, like how would that make you feel? It's my first time being cuffed outside playing basketball with my friends, doing nothing.
Right. And if you were to rob something, you probably wouldn't be playing basketball. Like it's just common sense to understand that like we're not playing basketball if we just robbed a convenience store.
Robbed a convenience store. Why would we just be out here playing basketball, hanging out, laughing?
I mean, I guess if I were to rob a convenience store, it'd probably be in my best interest to probably try to do that. But
to act normal, right?
Yeah. But you're probably on the run trying to get away from whatever the situation was. So it's unfortunate. And it's embarrassing. I'm sure you guys were embarrassed by the fact that people at your school and people that were driving by, especially in a community, like you grew up in Fairfield, where kind of everybody knows each other,
Right. Yeah, that's what definitely was tough for us. And then, the next week at school, people asking us what happened, like, did you get arrested? Just having to answer those questions. It's like I never felt like, just so humiliated and then I felt like I couldn't do anything about it. Like it was out of my control. Like, I told my parents or whatever the case may be. And I probably marginalized it to my parents to make it smaller than what it was. My mom was very mad. Of course, my dad was very mad. But at the time, I don't think I was educated enough. I mean, I was a young man to just, go make a complaint to, the police force or, do whatever it was. I didn't get those badges, it wasn't all, social media wasn't big as it is now. So, it's not like we were recording them, like we didn't know anything. And that's why I always say, like, we should definitely educate ourselves as black men, just to know those things. So if we're ever in those situations.
Yeah. Where did your parents grow up?
My mom grew up in Oakland. My dad grew up in Belleville. Right. So they've experienced several things that my dad has told me and my mom. And, that's why they always talk to me about it, because they had it worse than I had it growing up. My dad used to have to fight. Him and his brothers and sisters used to have to walk to school every day, and they used to have to fight white kids every day going across the railroad tracks because they would throw rocks at them and call them the N-word, or, call them all types of names. So that's something that I just couldn't even fathom. I don't even know what I would do in that situation.
Right. And that is the plight of a lot of Black parents, and our generation growing up. A lot of our Black parents used to see this growing up more often. My family is from the Midwest. My dad is from Omaha, Nebraska. My mom is from St. Louis, Missouri. So there was a lot of different things that took place that we weren't really aware of. And like you said about the education, like, we're not being taught that stuff a lot, especially, where I grew up. We weren't being taught that in the history classes. So the only way you're going to find out is, one, your parents telling you, and at some point you stop thinking about, or listening to what they're saying. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And the other way is it actually happens to you. And like, we were both around the same age when we had our encounters with things that we had nothing to do with, but the law enforcement saw it in a different way. And just the way they were brought up was much different, and they try to make you aware, but it's just much more difficult for them to get their point across.
Right.
And then when it happens, they're almost I don't know about your parents, but my mom was almost like mad at me.
Right.
You're like, I told you this was going to happen, and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that we'll get to later is, what does the next generation have to do, or our current generation have to do to make it apparent to everybody. But my second scenario kind of went like this. Now fast forward a couple years, I'm 17 years old. We meaning me and my friends, there was four black kids, 2 or 3 white kids, so 7 of us, bored on a weekend, not much to do, and we decided to hop in my buddy's 4Runner, so could fit 5 in the seats, and then a couple of us in the back, so there was a total of 7 of us. And we go kind of joyriding around the neighborhood. He's speeding up, slowing down, and just doing kid stuff.
Yeah, just doing teenager stuff. Yeah,
we actually had no business doing what we were doing. Right. But we're bored. We wanted to do something, get out of the house. And so, the police come. We're just in our buddies who's lives in a white neighborhood, or predominantly white anyway. And we're right around the corner from his house, actually. So we get pulled over, everybody out, sit us down on the sidewalk, and they basically separate us from there. So 4 black people. It was a black driver. I was in the way back, in basically where the trunk area would be, with another black friend of mine, and then there's 3 other white people and 1 other black person in the middle seat. So they pull us out. They didn't handcuff us then, but they separated us. They put us 4 on one side and put them 3 on the other side, and they kind of let them go without any recourse. They took care of them first, make sure their parents come and got them first, and then they worked with us and started asking questions and doing all this stuff. And we're all looking at each other kind of like how you guys were on the sidewalk, like, wait, we were all in the car, right?
Right.
So outside of breaking, we didn't break any laws other than, the traffic laws, and that would be a ticket for whoever was driving. Nobody had been drinking or anything like that. There's no alcohol, no drugs, because they check. And
Oh, for sure.
So they get to go and we get to stay here. And you were almost to the point, like, how is this happening?
Right.
Because we were all involved. Everybody that was in the car, might not have been driving. We were all involved. It wasn't, a major crime. It was just breaking some traffic laws and speed laws in that neighborhood, which I totally get. Cite the man and let us, we're underage, fine. Call all our parents together, but don't just segregate the 3 and then the 4 of us, and make us feel that shame. And same thing. Neighbors come out. It's 11 o'clock at night, 10 or 11. They're all looking at the 4 black kids on the sidewalk because the white kids already got picked up.
They might like, oh, what'd they do? Or, oh, they must have did something. Like, no telling what they're thinking. But just for y'all to even feel that again, like, gosh.
Yeah.
Humiliating, man.
Yes, it is.
Tough. But man, another experience that I would say that I went through was dating a girl. She was half black, half white, but she lived in a golf course, nice area, predominantly white area. And again, I rarely share this experience, but I just feel like this is the time to share. We're in an altercation. She starts throwing CDs out of my window, hitting me, physically abusing me, so I pull over the car, I remove myself from the car. But again, my mom used to always tell me, again, be careful in that neighborhood. They look at you different. Just make sure, they look at you different, and things won't always go your way. So again, I'm like, yeah, okay, mom, whatever the case may be. So now I'm in this situation. My mom told me, be careful about this girl. So again, I don't listen. Fast forward to the situation. She's swinging on me, crying, hitting me, throwing CDs out of my car window. I remove myself from the situation. Bam, I grab her so she doesn't continue to hit me. Her neighbor drives by, makes a U-turn, turns around, starts screaming at me right away. Doesn't even know the incident. Starts screaming at me right away.
The neighbor was screaming at you?
Screaming at me right away, yeah. So then I'm just like, whoa, she hit me, like this is the case, blah, blah. She tells her, get in the car, we're leaving. So she hops in the car, and I'm standing there. I leave, I go home, I have scratches on my face, scratches on my arm. My mom asked me what happened. I told her what happened. Bam. I told you to leave her alone. I told you to not be in those situations. Like, now you'll probably learn your lesson. A month flies by. I'm 18, just freshman year at my junior college. I'm coming home for 4th of July. Get a call from the officers. Hey, Phillip, we want to talk to you about a situation that happened with you and such. When's a good time to talk? I was like, oh, I'll be home tomorrow. Okay, cool. Bam. Next day, they're telling me they're going to come over and talk to me. They come over to talk to me. They called me again from a private number. Hey, we're outside, blah, blah, blah. I'm in the backyard with my dad and my friends barbecuing. We're just having a good time before my family and my sisters come home. Come outside. I'm like, hey, what's up, officers? I'm just, cooperating. How you guys doing? They're like, hey, before we even talk to you about anything, can you just turn around for us real quick? So then I turn around. I'm looking at my house. I turn around. They throw me up against the car and handcuff me. And I'm like, I'm thinking it's a joke, because I'm like, what's going on? Like, what did I do? Like, what's the situation? And they're like, you lucky we're even going to let you do this, but do you want to tell your parents where you're going? And then I'm like, where am I going? Like, where am I going? So I yell, Mom, Dad. My mom is the more level-headed one. She's been a probation officer for 35 years. So again, she comes out, shows them her badge. Hey, officers, why are you detaining my son? Why is he in handcuffs? Man, we're just doing our job. We got a call. We're just doing our job. My dad comes out yelling, screaming. They're telling him to back up before they arrest him. And I'm just kind of like, what did I do? Why am I arrested? So then I asked them, why did you guys tell me to turn around? Like, why didn't you guys just tell me what was going on? And so they said, well, we looked at your profile or whatever, and basically they said that they didn't want me to run. So they thought that I might run if I knew what was going. And I was like, why would I run? I just don't, I was like, why would I run? So then they basically tell me the situation that the girl that I was talking to at the time, her two friends, which were white females, had called them after we got into the altercation a month ago and told them that I put hands on her, that I was aggressive with her, and I left a bruise on her, and that so the officers came by and arrested me and took me in for questioning, and I did none of that. Fast forward the situation, of course, there were no evidence. She ended up lying about the whole situation. She told him she was lying. Again, my family had to bail me out of a holding cell Friday. Again, the whole city knows about me. Word starts getting around. My family had to bail me out $2,500 out of my parents' pockets. Again, I'm telling my parents, Mom, it's good. Like, let me just stay in here for the weekend. But she didn't want me to actually go to an actual jail. Like, I would have had to go for the jail for the weekend. Then they would have let me out. But she didn't want that. So they ended up bailing me out. No, my son's not a criminal. And fast forward, have to go to court. Everything is dropped, of course. But the thing that sucked when I tried to get it like expunged off of my record, even though it's not on my record, it will show up still. So like, this is a life-changing thing that it would show up if I applied for, any type of extensive job. It will show up, and the judge didn't want to expunge it. And we thought to ourselves, this guy, he's an athlete. He's never been in trouble in his life, never done anything wrong. why would you not, the charges were dropped, why would you not expunge this from his record? But looking at it, the judge doesn't know me. All the judge knows is that this is a young African-American male, and he basically has a domestic violence charge. So I'm not going to expunge it to let him go free, regardless of what happens. So again, that whole situation was like, whoa. Like, so you're going to, like, her two white friends just said something about me. There was nothing. She got in no trouble, no nothing. And I was like, whoa, things are really, really different for me. Like, these things, like, these experiences made me think like, whoa, life is different. And as a young man, it's like you get filled with rage, but then it's like I have to control this rage that I have in me for the officers, for people, that I'm treated differently. Like, I have to control my embarrassment. I have to control this humiliation. I got to control all of this stuff inside of me while trying to live my everyday life, trying to go to school, just be a good person. Like, this is everything that's inside of me and that I'm feeling at the time. So that was just very tough.
Man, I didn't know that. I mean, I'm sure it's hard to even still talk about it to this day, but it is your reality. And I'm glad you're sharing it. I mean, there's so many things. I think you talked about the anger and the rage. So with the protesters, some are getting violent. It's not, by the way, depending on which news channel you're watching, you see a very different narrative.
Yeah.
On one news channel, you see all races. And on one of them, I didn't even see any Black people.
None.
On the San Jose one. It wasn't them. I didn't see many. You watch another one, it's only showing the Black people, destructing things. But when everybody saw George Floyd, that enraged a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And so, if you talk about Kaepernick and he tried to do it peacefully, he wasn't making a big funk about it. Right. Everybody else made that funk now. Mm-hmm. And, my mom used to tell me, oh, he's going to lose his job. And I'm like, nah, she was right. He lost everything. But it turns out that he was just kneeling, guys. He wasn't doing anything other than that. He didn't even bring it to anybody's attention. It was the media that, put it out there. And then, when our leadership starts to speak about it, then, it starts to make other people feel about it, because if you support, certain leaders, and this ain't no political thing, but if you support somebody, if I support you, I'm going to go down with you no matter what. Right. And so if you say that he should be standing and putting his heart across his chest, and, I believe in you. Well, I believe you, and then that obviously lost him his job, lost him his career. But when you look back on it, 3 years later, he was 100% right. But back to my original point, that rage is because we haven't been heard. And so if you haven't been heard, what's the only other recourse of action? And I don't agree with, protesting and damaging property. I feel like it takes away from what initially was a stance. And that was the same thing with Kaepernick too. Mm-hmm. It took away all that other stuff, the media that portrayed it this way is, he's not an American, and, he's anti, our army and people that serve for our country.
They took it all out.
But when you don't get heard, then you have to, start to do other things. And to your point earlier, that rage and that anger, and that's what people saw in that George Floyd incident. When we can actually see it, it makes you like, oh my goodness, this is out of hand. And it shouldn't have taken this long. Like I said, it's 2020. This was happening, for 400 plus years, but, specifically in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and early 70s, you can really see it. And that's the era in which our parents grew up.
Right. Yeah. Cause if you think about Cap, you think about the NBA, like I Can't Breathe shirts, like you think about others in the NFL who have said that, you know, I'm going to kneel and, you know, and specifically say because police brutality, like it has nothing to do with the Army veterans and, you know, anything of that nature. It's simply because I feel that Black people are getting mistreated. And this is why I'm kneeling peacefully. There was outrage. There was uproar. He needs to just play football and shut up. Like he needs to do all of this stuff. But when people are protesting now, and, you know, there's things going on, and, you know, they're not that. That's why, like you said, I don't agree with it at all. But in a way, I understand, because you think about, like, what if that is your child? What if your child got shot? Like, what if that's your dad? You know, your brother. How are you going to feel when there's no justice being served, no nothing? And the officer just loses his job or whatever. But how are you going to feel inside that somebody just took your family member for no reason? And people don't look at it from that instance. Like I said, I don't agree, because half the time it's to the point that it's not even a message being heard. It's simply just young, dumb kids going to rob stores. That's all it seems like it is now. Like they're going to break into stores and steal things. But you cannot say, oh, this is what it is, when you have never been in those shoes, when your family has never been in those shoes, and you don't understand anything that they are feeling inside. And this is their only way to get a message across, because they've tried every other way to get a message across, and that hasn't worked, or that didn't awake you. Like you turned a blind eye to it. But now all of a sudden they're you know, wrecking property or whatever the case may be, and now all of a sudden, oh, they're wrecking property. Oh, that's dumb. Blah, blah. Where were you when the protesting was happening? And that's where I think there's a disconnect in some things that happen, especially with different ethnicities.
100%. And it's so crazy to think that, you know, we're in this environment and how we got here. But the bottom line is, how did it all start? You know, I like to reverse engineer things. And all right, well, where's the finish and where did it start? You know, basically try to, as a coach, you're looking like, all right, where are we at and where do we want to get to and how are we going to do that? Right. And so it all starts with racism. And because we haven't been heard, you know, the Black community, and this goes for any oppressed, you know, any oppressed, you know, civilization or group of people. But if you haven't been heard, then this is the reason why. And then when you go from that, then you have to go to this. I don't say you have to, but, you know, that's what people are choosing to do. And I can't really fault them, because I understand I may not agree with, you know, looting and protesting that way, in a violent way. But the peaceful protests haven't been or significantly changed anything more recently anyway. So, and, you know, and this is, I guess, my third story, and I have many more. Some of them are too painful to even discuss on wax, similar to yours. But the one thing I've always had to do, and you're educated, I'm educated. I've got 3 college degrees. I've got a master's, I've got 2 undergraduate degrees, and then I've got an associate's degree. So I've got all this education. And no matter what I do, I always have to be better than somebody that is a different skin complexion than me. Like I've always had to do that. And a lot of the times it's really funny because people are getting a glimpse of what it's like to be Black a little bit. Okay. And I'll explain. So everybody has to wear a mask when they go out, right? And so the people that aren't wearing masks, when like I'm on the trail and people are walking by, they're looking at them like, I got to get away from this person. Well, guess what? We've been dealing with that our whole life. We're walking down the street and we might be by ourselves and we might be with people. We're walking around a regular suburban street. Those people do what?
Grab their bag or go to the other side of the street, other side of the sidewalk. If they got kids, they're going to grab their kids and move them to the side and make sure their kids are good. Like, we're a threat. like literally
Yes.
because of our skin color.
You said it the same way I was gonna say it, and we didn't even talk about it. But that's been our reality from day one. We've always had to be better, and we've always had to almost be apologetic for being Black. Like I told the girls at school, I have to act a certain way because you don't want to be portrayed as the Black guy
Right.
or whatever it may be. I just want to fit in as a person. But it was heartbreaking to hear some of our players say, "Coach, I feel the same way." And I also said it's not just at the school; it
Mm-hmm.
is everywhere.
Right.
Uh, this past 4th of July, uh, my boy who's white and his girlfriend come up to visit us in Oregon, at my wife's parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
They have a beautiful home and winery, and we go to another winery to do some wine tasting. And we took 2 separate cars. I'm with my buddy and his girl, and my family had already just walked in. And the guy is this older white guy, probably in his late 50s, early 60s, comes up and says, just looks directly at me. And I'm with him, basically like he didn't even see the other 2 white people that I was with. And he comes up to me and says, "Staying out of trouble?" Like with a question mark. And I said, I don't know yet. I don't know what type of day it's going to be yet. And
Yeah.
just smiled and kept it moving. But, and I didn't even remember that. He told me this last night when I was
Yeah.
talking to him on the phone.
Right.
He was like, I'm excited to hear what you and Phillip have to say
Right.
on the podcast. And I said, wait, I couldn't even remember what happened because it happened so often.
Yeah.
That was the
Right.
funny part. Like it happens so often. And I didn't even remember. I like literally didn't remember that it happened. And then when he said it, I was like, oh yeah, I do remember that. And that was just not even a year ago.
That's
So
crazy. It's those passive aggressive comments like, "Oh, I'm joking." Like, "Oh yeah, I'm staying out of trouble," but like literally, like we don't know. It's literally those type of comments, and those are
yeah,
the ones that they want to get a rise out of you, and those are the ones that you just gotta. Man, it's crazy because, like you said, you gotta always feel like you have to act a certain way, and even you can't even react to certain things, even if you get angry or bothered, because you're just gonna be that angry Black guy. Like I told you, see,
right.
that's how he is, and that's another thing, another struggle. Like I wanna, like you might even want to cuss somebody out or something like that, but you know that I cannot do that just because of the repercussions that might come with it. But if that were them, they wouldn't even think twice about cussing you out or anything because they know that they'll get backed up, or if an officer comes anyways, they're not going to necessarily come me. I'm just going to be the angry guy who's the victim. You're not going to be like, and if it was vice versa, you know.
Right. There's only a certain amount of people that I can be 100% like. I have friends from all backgrounds: white, Black,
Right.
Hispanic, Asian, and I can really be authentic with them. Um, Out in public, I can't really be my authentic self all the time because what somebody may see is something that really isn't the full story. And I told the girls this. I said, so we like to be comfortable. Sometimes we're coaches.
Right.
Like who wants to be in a shirt and tie coaching outside of a basketball game?
Right.
Actual game, but in
Right.
practice I'm wearing sweats. I look
Right.
like the kids. I still want to be fly. I might wear a hoodie
Right.
walking in. I might go to the grocery store after and I got my hoodie. I got
Right.
to take my hoodie off.
Right. You gotta really.
I can't keep it on. It might be cold outside, and usually when my hair is short, my hair is cold, so I got to wear something on my head. I might be wearing a hat, whatever it may be. But it's always constantly appeasing to making sure that other people feel comfortable, and we should be at the point now where we don't really have to do that, and that's
Yeah.
a sad part
And
about it.
yeah, no, that's definitely, and that's where the point where I've kind of been. It's just like I don't really care. I know, like just being able to be in situations is like, man, I cannot care, because for my sanity, it's going to drive me crazy if I keep trying to care what you people think about me when I go places and stuff. And I remember just like little things, like friends of mine who might not be of the ethnicity as me, is that they ask me questions, or, oh, you might want to take your hoodie off, or you might want to do this. And I'm kind of just like, at this point, it's like, we just kind of got to just stop caring. Not saying that we just got to act out or act maliciously, but like, it's going to drive us crazy. I mean, for our mental as Black men, everything that we already go through, and, you know, that all the weight on our shoulders already, I just don't want to continue to pile more things on, you know?
Right.
So that's where I'm at. The last story that I have, though, is a quick story. It has nothing to even do with officers, because again, racism comes in all different forms, and it's not even just police brutality. We're just focused on police brutality because of George Floyd and the things that happen around the world. But my ex-girlfriend wanted to turn a blind eye to everything, literally caused friction in our relationship, because things that I used to go through, or I used to talk about, or things that we used to see on TV about, you know, of police brutality or whatever, she was the one who always tried to play the devil's advocate. Why has this happened? You sure this didn't happen because he was like, you sure he didn't get shot because he was resisting arrest? And I would look at her like, because he was resisting means that he has to lose his life, regardless if he was resisting or not. That does not mean you lose your life. Like, what?
No doubt.
Like you got to justify that, or he just didn't get pulled over because he was speeding, or he really had a tail light out, you know, things. But I can't expect her to understand. But what I can expect my partner to do is want to understand, or, you know, be aware, or look at it from a different lens. And she would never try to look at it like that. So I meet her mom for the first time, and she goes to the bathroom. My ex goes to the bathroom, and her mom tells me, hey, straight up, I don't know why she's with you. Like, I don't know why she's with this. Like, literally, you're a Black guy. Like, I don't get why she has to choose a Black guy. There's millions of white guys out there. And I'm literally standing there, like, and I'm like, oh, she's serious. Yeah. So then I'm just kind of like, well, you know, I mean, maybe she cares about me, you know? Like, I was like, I respect your decision, but I mean, maybe she cares about me. I care about her. And, you know, I told my ex-girlfriend, or my girlfriend at the time, this story, and, you know, she was appalled, like, oh my gosh, she's crying. My mom would never say that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you don't know your mom. And I started thinking about, okay, how do I want to raise my kids? This might be their grandmother one day. Like, I don't want my kids even being around that. And then speaking of grandmother, the first time I meet her grandmother, so the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Her mother's mom, which is her grandma, meet her for the first time. She then goes to tell me I'm wearing a hat, one of the big hats, because we're going swimming in the backyard and it's hot. You know, we cover up. So she goes to tell me, she's laughing about it. You look like you should be picking cotton with that hat. And I'm like, whoa, this is the first time I ever met her. Whoa. And so I look at her, and her cousins had already warned me, like, she is, because her cousins are like Hawaiian and they're darker skin tone. So, and I look at her and I'm just kind of like, you know, and then she goes to continue. She goes, why are you African Americans so loud? Why are these African American women so loud? And why are they so ghetto? And I was like, and again, this sucks because, again, my girlfriend at the time, she wasn't around. So then I was like, respectfully, and again, this is a point where, like, I have to control myself and not lash out. I was like, respectfully, I mean, I don't think that it's right for you to say that. I think that it was disrespectful for you to say that. And I don't think, if you understood the African-American culture, you would understand that's just a sign of love and everything. My mom and my aunties, if they get together at a party or anything like that, yeah, we're going to be loud. We're going to be listening to music. We're going to be laughing and having a great time and showing and expressing love. Everybody expresses love differently. For you to say that it's loud and ghetto because we're loud and laughing and having a good time, that's not right of you. Like, that's just not right of you. So I use that as a educational time for her to be like, okay, this person is older than me. She obviously knows nothing. An older white woman. She come from Connecticut. She's in contact with 5 Black people in her entire life. She knows nothing. She's not trying to know anything. So she's just loose lips saying whatever she wanted to. And I had to let her know, like, that's offensive to me and just for every other Black person that you think or you might think or you see on TV or whatever. That's just not how it works. And for you to say that is just disrespectful. She then goes, well, she just got an attitude with me. And I was like, okay, I just wanted to say what I had to say. And I just walked away and left it at that.
Right.
Again, I told my girlfriend about that at the time. She's like, no, my grandmother would never say that. Crying, blah, blah. Then when she finally asked her grandma if she said that, her grandma said yes. And she's just crazy. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, blah, blah. And I was like, you're turning a blind eye to everything. You even said if it doesn't affect you, because you're white, you get to go to work every day. You get to, these things don't happen to you. So it doesn't matter to you. But what about me experiencing? She's like, well, that was your past, you don't experience them all now. And I was like, some stuff I do experience, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm a Black man. So she never wanted to learn. And that's a lot of what happens with other people of different ethnicities. They don't want to learn anything. And they don't want to be educated on it. They think they know everything, but you're never in a Black person's shoes. And so that was even eye-opening to me, like, whoa, like people really think that way.
Right. And that's a good point, because all cultures are different.
Right.
If you're in the Asian culture, you do things that are different than,
Right.
Maybe the African-American culture or the Caucasian culture. And it also depends on where you live and where you grew up. Like
Right.
the Bay Area is much different than, Texas, for instance, or back East. It's just different cultures. And, you have to be able to embrace all those cultures, the differences, find the positives. And if you don't know about something or you're uneducated, then there's a lot of things online that you can find to educate yourself that is actual facts, and outside of you just witnessing it for the first time. And just because it's different, I may not understand what this other culture is doing, but I can respect that this is what they do,
Right.
and the types of food that people eat. It's all
Right.
it's all differences that make us, who we are and such a great nation. But at the same time, when people, find those differences to be, or their prejudice against those differences, that's where we have an issue. And yeah, I mean, the opposite is true too. There's reverse racism.
Right.
Black people can be really racist towards white people.
Right.
I've just grown up with so many. And the one thing I forgot to mention earlier is we grew up in a little bubble here in the Bay Area, in California, specifically in Northern and Southern California. Maybe the further you go down, and down in Southern California, or further you go north, it may be a little bit different. I know you went to Humboldt as well, so it's probably a little bit different up there. But in the LA area and the Bay Area and Northern California, in this little bubble, it's just much different. It's so diverse. You're going to see multiple ethnicities everywhere, and the rest of the nation doesn't see that. Yeah. But the problem is when you live in a bubble like this, some of the Black kids or African American kids that we coach, they may go to Texas, they may go to South Carolina, and they're not ready for what that different racism is, because to our earlier points about our parents trying to teach us, well, if you haven't been taught that, it's going to be very difficult for you to understand the dynamics, what goes on in the South or what goes on in the Northeast or the Midwest, when you haven't been exposed to it.
Right. And because that's definitely it. Like, you hit it right on the nose. Like, I don't even have anything to add to that. That's literally it.
So moving on, what can we do to communicate to others that may not understand what we go through?
I honestly just think trying to educate them and have those tough conversations with them, that would be what I would say in terms of communication. Trying to educate them in terms of, like, things that we go through. This is why it is, just have that open dialogue is so tough, especially with people of different ethnicities. Have those tough conversations where it might be uncomfortable, like, and say how you really feel, so we can tell you how we really feel, and we can really communicate and share experiences with you, so you might see it through a different lens. And we might, even as African Americans, see it through a different lens. Like, okay, this is how you think. This is where you got it from. Okay, this is how we think. This is how we got it from. Okay, so how can we come to a common solution where we can move forward and you could support? Because in reality, yes, this is focused on African Americans and Black people, but this is just a human thing, like a whole worldly thing. Like, yes, it's us, but we're all humans at the end of the day, and we just want to be treated equal, not like animals or not like some thugs or, you know, fugitives all the time. Like, we want to be treated equal just like everybody else, and that's really the big picture of everything.
No doubt. And I would put it to everybody like this. So, you know, I've seen my wife go through 2 pregnancies, and the amount of pain that she's going through, I can see it. I can't feel it. I don't really know how to equate what is actually going on. It looks like it hurts, but I don't really know because I'm actually not going through it. That's what I would say it's like to be Black. Is it may look like, you know, oh, you know, you're getting the baby out and you're obviously excited to have that,
Right.
but you won't really know until you actually have this skin. You got to wear this skin every single day. And that's how I would put that. And you basically explain that is, you know, you have to ask those conversations. So how was that? What was that like for you? Things like that. And, you know, we're willing to share, but it's not a topic that normally we would just bring up just because. Like, if we're having a conversation with our white friends or Asian friends or whoever, we're not just going to say, hey, you know, you want to bring this up? It's like, no, it's not something that you really bring up, you know, if you're at a gathering, like, okay, let's get this race talk out of the way.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So, but that's how I would equate it. You don't really know it until you get into that experience and you're in our skin and understanding the things that we have to go through on a day-to-day basis. And you just wouldn't know if if you haven't gone through it. And it's our job to share. But if people want to know, then ask questions. I talked to one of our admins today, and he's like, I have enjoyed listening. And he asked me, you know, my opinion on, you know, what stance should be taken by his organization. And I absolutely said that you should take a stand. You know, it's not an African American thing. It's a humanity thing.
Right.
And that kind of going to go into the next thing that I want to talk about. This ain't just a Black issue. It's everybody's issue. And if we're not willing to talk about it and you're not willing to listen, well, then, you know, it's like people that go to therapy. I mean, if you don't want to go to therapy or you get forced to go, it's not gonna do anything. You're not gonna change. But if you are willing to listen to the person, you know, maybe you're in a relationship therapist or with a relationship therapist, and you guys are corresponding and learning, oh, well, that's what you feel when that happens, and everybody is entitled to the way they feel, but everybody is not entitled to be the dictator to how you treat people. Everybody needs to be treated with a certain level of respect and being equal. Oh, I got one more point. You know, being basketball coaches, all right, I equate it to this. We play somebody. You're thinking, okay, cool. Well, if you didn't put no work in, I'm about to dog you.
Right.
You know? But being Black is being down 20 before the start of the game. We're already down 20 in so many situations, and we have to catch up. We've always been playing catch up. And that's what I've always tried to do, is just make no excuse for that. I already know I'm down 20. I got to work harder. I got to put myself, it shouldn't be that way. No, it is. And hopefully one day that will change with, you know, everybody's awareness now. But I would put it to anybody listening that might not know, we're down 20 and everybody else, and they talk about the white privilege. Yes, it's real, you know, and there's no debate about that.
Yeah.
If anybody was going to come into this world, you're not going to be Black.
Right.
If you just an arbitrary, now that when you come in, you're like, no, I want to be Black, right?
Right.
I wouldn't change my race for anything.
Oh, for nothing.
But if you give me a blank slate, if they ask you, all right, what race do you want to be? Well, I'm gonna be white, most likely, because it's an
It's an
easier
easier route.
path. If somebody is gonna, do you want to start from the bottom and with the opportunity to make $1 million, or I'm gonna just give you $1 million?
Give you $1 million.
Wait, you gonna give me $1 million? I want that one.
Let me take a
that's
meal.
that's what I'm gonna take, and that's the same thing, And I was talking to one of my friends who's gay, and they said, like, Chris, I didn't choose to be gay. Who wants to choose to be gay?
Right.
My life would be much easier if I was straight.
Right.
Like, I get it. You kind of right.
I get it. My life would be much easier if I was black, but white.
White.
Yeah.
You got anything to add on the is this a black issue or anything like that?
I think you touched on a lot of it. Like, it's just a humanity issue, and I think again it starts by us having those tough talks, and white people being able to advocate for remove their self from the situation for a minute, take a step back and just advocate, and them realizing that this is a humanity issue. Like, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Indian, Chinese, whatever you are. We're all humans. Like, we're all humans, and we should be advocating for humans to be treated equally. It just so happened that these humans who are not being treated equally are people of color. And that's where the issues are coming up. So I think it's tough to grasp for some people who, again, aren't educated or who don't want to be aware of things. Like, when you're silent and you're not saying anything, that just means that you don't really care about the situation and you're not advocating for the situation because it's not happening to you. Like, if roles were reversed or this were happening to you, you would want the support. You would need the support, but it's not happening to you. So you're just like, all right, I'm going to stay in my little bubble. I'm cool. My family's good. Like, we got the privilege. We're good. But if we really started using that white privilege, like, it's so much privilege. Like, if white people really started using that privilege for the greater good and really to advocate for human rights and, Black Lives Matter, that would go such a long way. And that could be the start of something beautiful. Granted, we've made progress from last year, from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We've made progress. But in order for us to take a big jump and a large leap, we're going to need people of different ethnicities to get on board and realize that we're all in this all together.
Right. I believe, and you can fact check me, so I'm sure I'll get some emails or tweets about it, but I'm pretty sure we're 10% or under of the entire population. And so
that's crazy.
If that is the case, then you're 100% right, in which we need everybody to come together, and specifically white people, because they are the majority. And there are so many great white people in this world.
For sure.
It's just, and there's so many great black people. There's good and bad in all. But at the end of the day, we're going to need the majority to help out with this issue. And
even officers.
Even officers, yeah, for sure. I know we have a lot of great officers in our area, and one was on the news. It was an Asian guy that ended up shooting off it wasn't a real gun, but it could do damage to somebody, and now he's all in the news, and people are wanting to get him fired and stuff like that. He was probably scared. I couldn't even imagine being an officer in that situation. It looks like a war going on out there, and I'm talking about the protests and the looters and stuff like that.
Right.
That looks crazy,
right?
Because fireworks are going off. You don't know if it's a gun.
It's like the Purge.
Exactly. So you don't know which one you're trying to look 360 degrees because there's so many things coming at you.
Right.
You don't really, it's a tough situation, and we feel for them too. And I'm empathetic to both sides, but I'm not empathetic to the inequalities that have been going on
for
so
sure.
long. And that's why I think, I've been quiet, because I just kind of go about my life. It's not really affecting me, but I don't want this to affect my son, my daughter, as they grow up. And so people have to get comfortable chatting about this with their minority friends, because we're open to the conversations that we've been talking about now. What are we going to do in our community now to kind of help out what's going on in the world? Because if we try to tackle the world problem, like, where do you go with that? But what can we do in our communities?
I was talking to my boy about this just the other day, and it was more so like us as African Americans, we can start building our own. And I mean, again, we do that, but start educating ourselves to be in more positions of power. Like, we have to be in more positions of power so that we can make decisions for ourselves and other people around us, so that, you know, we have more of a say so. Because if just like if let's say I'm a African American attorney, I have the right to advocate for, you know, I could advocate for people who were wrongly accused or, you know, wrongly sentenced. If I'm a judge, if I have my own business and I have, you know, the leeway to hire who I want to hire, to make the decisions that I want to make. And also just because if we have the authority to make decisions, there's nothing that they can say to us. Like let's say, like, for instance, you were talking about earlier about how, you know, some African Americans, they can't be authentic always. They can't be authentic in the workplace. If I have my own workplace, I'm going to be myself. Whoever I hire can be their selves. So it's kind of like making my own rules and, you know, advocating for how African Americans should be treated, how African American business could be ran, how I go about in the community, doing community work. Let's say my job doesn't want to do community work, or I feel they're not advocating hard enough for, you know, human rights. Okay, well, I get in a position where that I could advocate and go out of my community and do the things necessary, help educate the young Black and brown kids that are younger, you know, and that's going to come up and go through these same things, help educate them so that they understand when they're in these situations, what to do, what not to do, what happens, you know? So I think it starts from, like, you know, the ground up, and, you know, you just working at something and then getting the community together to better themselves and everybody around in the community, even community groups, I would say, you know, just little things like that can start little, that could just continue to build. And then before you know it, I mean, you have, you know, your whole community. And this is not even just Black people. Again, communities, Black, white, everybody, you know, educate everybody and support and help build that community around. Before you know, you have communities all over, you know, doing this. Then that's how we tackle the whole thing. Like you said, we're not going to be able to tackle. I mean, the world is huge. Like it's not like we're going to go to the White House and be like, hey, I want to advocate for this. Like, I want you to do this and you make this change right now. Like, nah, it has to start in our community. That's why I'm glad you asked that question. Like, it has to start in our community and we build up to that, you know?
100%. That was spot on. Getting in positions of power, it makes me feel, you know, I own a club basketball program, but, you know, should I start to position myself to be in administration at some point, to help students of color see, you know, our side of things and be an advocate for them. What can people do to not be angry? Because that's the thing, that as we move forward, being angry isn't going to solve anything. Being level-headed will, but there's been so much anger over this time that it's very difficult for everybody to put that anger aside. And there was this good little thing that happened on Instagram. It was 3 generations, you know, a grandfather, a father, and then the son who's about 13. And the father was saying that it needs to be the next generation who's not that angry and able to, because the 2 other generations haven't solved it. Right. So it's got to be the next generation. And how can we help bridge that gap in between time?
I think that for everybody, I think you have every right to be angry. Like, it would be abnormal for you to feel angry. Like, it just wouldn't be right. Like, if you care about you're angry, and, you know, there's things that's going through your head. Like, I've been angry the past week. There's been things that's going through my head every night. I've been thinking about it. I remember I couldn't sleep one night because my mind was just racing and I was just all over the place. Like, gosh, I wish there was something I could do. I wish things weren't the way it was. Like, you know, like just so many things. And then it's like, I'm angry at the cops. Like I'm angry. And I would just say, let the anger out, but just channel it. Like you could be angry, scream, whatever you do to help, you know, channel those things, I would say. Because again, it's not realistic for us to tell people you can't be angry. Don't be angry. Like you're going to be angry. But it's like, what do you do with that anger? What am I going to do with all this built up? Like for me, I'm going to try to use it to motivate me. Like I want to build up something and like I said, be in a position of power. Like people have to start using that anger as motivation. Granted, don't forget what's happening. Don't forget the injustices around. But again, channel that anger to turn it into a positive. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to do us nothing with just being angry. That's going to cause us to make the wrong decision. That's going to cause us to lash out and go do something that we're going to regret doing. So I would say channel it and start, you know, using that as motivation to fuel your fire to whatever that you're trying to do, whatever you want to do in the community, to build up each other.
I would agree with you as well. And as we wrap it up, you know, I'm in an interracial marriage. My kids are biracial, and you know, but by all stretch of the imagination, you know, you are as well. Mm-hmm. But they're going to be considered Black,
right?
No matter what. Like my kids are going to be Black because their skin's going to be much darker than their mother's, no matter what. And moving forward, you know, what is your take on, you know, raising kids in this era where, you know, there are, especially in our era, there's a lot of multicultural relationships. And what, you know, how are you guys going to kind of parent that?
You know, I think like we've been talking about tough conversations and things like that. But, you know, with my interracial partner, I think it's important that, you know, you feel advocated for, and, you know, you feel like that we need to be able to educate our kids. And, you know, I think a lot of times we can't use that, because when choosing my partner, I chose based off of love, off of me and this person connect. I love you. It wasn't anything like, I don't want my partner to ever think like, oh, that situation isn't happening to me, so it doesn't affect me. Regardless, like we've been talking about, it's a humanity issue. So I want to be able to raise my kids and treat and teach them the same thing, and me and my partner be on the same page with that. You know, like understand that things might be different for you, and me and my partner be able to talk to them about it, and just us be on the same page when talking about interracial relationships. And me as a man be able to feel supported, empowered, that she has my back. If I wanted to go peacefully protest or go silently protest, she would be right there with me by my side, advocating for me, our family, and for everybody else who has, you know, went through these type of situations, you know?
I hear you 100%. And you know, I opened up my wife's eyes to a lot of different things.
Right.
That she may not have known before. And like, yeah, she knew, but she didn't know until, you know, she gets the looks then when we're together, or
right.
when, you know, when I tell her the situations that I've gone through in my life, things like that. So yeah, it's just important, you know, and like you said, we picked our partner based on love. It didn't matter what color they were, you know, and at the end of the day, that's really all that matters is love. And I think as we wrap it up, if people start to love one another more often and love the differences that people have, I think that's when we're really going to start to see the change and not divide. You know, our leaders have been dividing us. And I think we need to be brought together. And no matter what, you know, what your political stance is on everything, and we didn't talk about any politics. It's just really about the love that, you know, we need to do, and we need to come together and not be divisive.
And I think if we lead by love, like you keep saying, I think it'll be easier for other ethnicities to talk about, you know, the issues and things that are going on, and feel like it'll be easier for everybody to talk about if we all felt like we were in it together and a part of this. Like, not if conversations wouldn't go as smoothly if people were, you know, dividing, like, oh, I'm white and you're black. Oh, this is happening to you because of this. It doesn't happen to me. So what makes you think that it's happening to you because you're black? When we get in those type of conversations and those things happen, that's when we start dividing and not coming together with love, like you said.
No doubt. Any last words?
Hey, thank you for allowing me to be on this. I really appreciate it. This was great talk. I mean, I think it was therapeutic for me as a black man just to be able to talk about this and get this stuff out. And, just to talk about it with somebody else who's been through the same experiences. They get the looks and with their partner. You go through things that you're treated unfair. I think it's good to just be able to talk with somebody else, especially a close friend of mine, and be able to get these things out.
I think I'll end it like this. I think no matter what your situation is, start to understand people more. And how are you going to do that? You're going to do that by understanding people's situation a little bit more, asking questions and seeing how you can be able to help. So
right.
Just appreciate you. Go ahead.
No, I would just leave it. If anybody's in an interracial relationship or looking into it or like people of the opposite sex, you cannot have someone's culture. I mean, you cannot have someone's culture without understanding it or being a part of it. Just like a lot of people, they want the African-American culture, but they don't want everything that comes with it. Like that cannot happen. Like it's just not feasible. Like if you got to be all the way in, like this is a part of your culture now because your partners, that culture. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, like I love the music. I love how African-Americans dress. Like I love this and I love that and how they talk and everything about it. But I don't want nothing to do with police brutality and injustice. Like that's not fun. Like I don't want nothing to do with that. I just think we got to come together, like you said.
Yeah, I like cookies and brownies too, but I can't eat them every single day. But that's the same thing as far as that goes. But thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you, and we had a great intellectual conversation. Hopefully some people will be touched by it and just start asking more questions, and we're here to help however we can. So where can everybody follow you? You got some great content online.
I have a little brand called Lifestyle Everything. You guys can follow me that online, and my IG handle. All my handles are basically Slow Jam Philly. So go ahead and follow me, and we can discuss whatever.
Thanks. Love you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Love you too, brother. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond the Buckets podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and share the show with your friends. And until next time, take care.